Hi, I'm Elaine Simpson, President of Occupancy Solutions. This is your Multifamily Minute, where we discuss tips, tactics, insights, and solutions for navigating the multifamily industry. I'd like to talk to you about another closing technique, and that is called overcoming objections. And most of the time, people don't see overcoming objections as in closing technique, but it really is. Because if a prospect has an objection, it's your opportunity to overcome it. And when you overcome it, you close them. So let's talk about the process of overcoming an objection. The first thing is you've got to recognize that there's an objection. And an objection can be verbal, where they say, I don't like something, or it could be physical, where they might have this frown on their face or arms crossed and just shaking their head like this. That would be a physical, but you have to be aware and look for those objections. And we don't like to, because we don't like negative things typically, but we have to in order to do our jobs as leasing professionals. So an objection is something you either hear or see or feel. When you do that, when you notice that, you need to understand that objection. And that's where we get into a really uncomfortable phase, right? This is where we have to ask the prospect, what don't they like about what they're seeing or hearing? We don't like to hear what people don't like, but we have to ask in order to overcome it. And when you ask that, you may have to ask several questions to better understand it. But you can't overcome an objection if you don't understand what the true objection is. The next step is to verify the actual objection. And when I say that, I mean, don't repeat back to the person the exact same words that they gave you. Reword it in your own words and say it back to the prospect. And I'll run through an example on this in just a moment. Once you verify that you understand the objection, then you need to overcome it. Once you overcome it, then you want to confirm with your prospect that they feel that you overcame the objection. Because if you went through these steps and didn't overcome it to their satisfaction, you didn't overcome the objection. So here's a great example. You have, let's say, a senior community that's 3 stories tall and a prospect that says they want to live on the first floor. Don't have a first floor apartment available, so you're trying to convince them to take a second or third floor. And they don't want a second or third floor. Well, many times we assume it's because of stairs or because they don't like heights or something like that. But if we assume, we may not have the ability to overcome the objection effectively. So in this case, we ask questions. Mrs. Prospect, why is it that you don't want to be on the third floor? Why is it that you prefer the first floor? And these are questions that we don't necessarily like to hear the answers to because it puts us in that uncomfortable zone. But let's say she says, back several years ago, I lived in Detroit. We lost power for a week and a half, and I lived in a senior building on the 3rd floor, and the elevators broke down or weren't usable because there was no power, and she had to walk up and down the stairs every time she went out of her apartment. And that's a lot for a senior, right? So let's say your property is a 3-story senior community and you do have elevators, but you also have a backup generator in case the power goes out so that your residents do not have to climb up and down the stairs. This is a great way to overcome this objection by explaining to Mrs. Prospect that not a problem here because we have generators exactly for that purpose. And make sure she agrees that she feels more comfortable with it. If she says yes, she feels more comfortable, you have just closed her. So don't be afraid of objections, but be prepared to overcome them. And also understand that you can't always overcome every objection. So if you can't overcome an objection, focus on the things that you do have and that the prospect likes. That's it on overcoming objections.